There's something powerful about not saying a word, just doing the work. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, where people shout their plans from the rooftops and post every step of their hustle online, there's a quiet kind of strength in the person who just shows up day after day, putting in the effort with no fanfare. That's the real deal. That's the kind of grit that lasts. You don't need to tell people what you're going to do. You don't need a standing ovation for waking up early, staying up late, grinding in the shadows. Because when the results come, they speak for you. And they speak louder than anything you could have said. There was a time in my life when I thought talking about the dream would help make it real. I thought if I just said it enough, put it out there enough, maybe I could speak it into existence. It happened nothing, because the talking became a substitute for the doing. The more I talked, the less I worked. The more I shared my vision, the more comfortable I became in the idea of success instead of the pursuit of it. And let me tell you, ideas are cheap. Execution, that's rare. That's what separates those who make noise from those who make moves. When you focus on the work and not the noise, something shifts inside you. You stop caring about who's watching. You stop waiting for permission. You stop needing applause. And that's when you get dangerous. In the best way. Because now you're driven by purpose, not praise. It's not about likes, followers, or what people think. It's about something deeper, something that wakes you up in the morning and keeps you going long after everyone else has quit. That kind of fire doesn't need to be announced. It just burns, and it burns steady. I remember being in rooms where no one knew my name. No one cared who I was, and that was fine, because I was there to learn. I was there to grow. I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I was just trying to get better. And in those moments, the silence was my ally. It gave me room to fail privately, to stumble without judgment, to recalibrate without pressure. That's something you don't get when you're constantly putting your journey on display. The world doesn't need to see your process. It only needs to see your progress when the time is right. We live in a culture that celebrates the announcement, the big reveal, the overnight success story. But here's the truth. There's no such thing as overnight success. What you're seeing in that moment is just the tip of the iceberg. What you don't see is the years, the setbacks, the sacrifices, the sweat, the silence. That's where greatness is forged. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in the shouting, but in the stillness. And when the time comes, when the work is finally ready to be seen, it'll be undeniable. You won't have to convince anyone. You won't have to explain yourself. The work will do that for you. See, when your actions speak, they don't just talk. They echo. They reach people in a way words never could. And the best part, they last. Because results can't be argued with. That finished product, that transformation, that victory, it's proof. Proof that you didn't just talk about it, you were about it. That's the difference. Anyone can talk. Very few can deliver. And this isn't about being secretive or hiding your dreams. No. This is about where you put your energy. Are you spending it on proving you're working, or are you spending it on actually working? Because the time you spend convincing others could be the time you spend improving yourself. Every second counts. Every quiet rep, every unnoticed hour, every small win that no one sees, it all adds up. And when it finally adds up to something big, that's when people pay attention. So don't worry about recognition right now. Don't worry about whether people understand your grind or respect it. Just keep going. Keep showing up. Keep putting your head down and getting it done. Because when you're focused, when you're locked in, when you're working hard in silence, one day, the noise that follows your success will be louder than anything you could have ever said. Let your work do the talking. Distractions are everywhere. You open your phone to check the time, and suddenly you've lost 30 minutes is scrolling through someone else's life. You post a win, and then spend the rest of the day checking for likes. You say you're working, but really, you're performing. And that performance, chasing attention, Craving validation, that's the real thief. It steals your time, your focus, your peace, and eventually your progress. I've been there. I know what it feels like to want people to notice, to crave that nod of approval, to wonder, does anyone see how hard I'm trying? But let me tell you something, that question is a trap. The moment you start needing outside applause to fuel your journey, you've already handed over your power. Because now you're not moving for you, you're moving for them. And when they stop clapping, you stop working. That's not sustainable. That's not real. There was a point in my life when I realized something had to change. I had to get honest with myself. Was I doing the work because I loved it, because it mattered, because it was meaningful to me? Or was I doing it so people would talk about me, praise me, validate me? That kind of external motivation burns out quick. It's like gasoline, it gives you a spark, but it doesn't last. What lasts is self-respect. What lasts is discipline. What lasts is showing up for yourself, even when no one's watching, and especially when no one cares. You have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Who am I trying to impress? And if the answer isn't me, then it's time to redirect. Because when your purpose comes from within, no outside voice can touch it. You become immune to the noise, immune to the critics, the doubters, the silence. You learn how to move with intention, not for attention. And that shift, that's everything. We live in a world that's obsessed with being seen, but visibility isn't the same as value. Just because people are watching doesn't mean you're winning. And just because no one notices you right now doesn't mean you're not making progress. Sometimes the biggest groping's in the dark. Roots don't grow on the surface. They grow underground where no one can see them, but they're still growing. And without that growth, nothing else can stand. So instead of chasing validation, chase mastery, chase depth, chase the kind of skill and confidence that doesn't need an audience. Because when you're good, really good, you don't have to announce it. You don't have to prove it. People will feel it, and they'll know. But to get there, you've got to protect your mind. You've got to guard your focus like it's gold, because it is. You can't afford to give your energy to every distraction, every opinion, every little piece of feedback that doesn't serve your mission. Your time is precious. Your goals are sacred. And every moment you spend worrying about what other people think is a moment you could have used becoming better, stronger, more refined in your craft. This isn't about arrogance. This is about discipline. It's about maturity. It's about knowing that greatness doesn't need to be broadcasted at every step. It needs to be built quietly, consistently, and intentionally. That's what separates amateurs from professionals. The amateur wants applause. The professional wants results. And look, I'm not saying recognition isn't nice. It is. It feels good to be seen, to be celebrated. But if you build your house on that feeling alone, it's going to collapse. Because applause is temporary, validation fades, people are fickle. You have to build your house on something stronger, like your own belief, your own discipline, your own sense of purpose. That's the only foundation that lasts. So don't be afraid to unplug. Don't be afraid to go dark for a while. Don't be afraid to disappear while you're working on something that matters. Let the world wonder where you went. Let them speculate. While they're busy talking, while they're distracted, you're dialed in. That's how legends are made. Quietly, steadily, relentlessly. And when you reemerge, when the work is done and the results are in, they'll know. You won't have to say a word. The progress will speak volumes. Silence the noise and protect your focus. There's something powerful about building yourself from the inside out. Not for the spotlight, not for applause, not for the highlighter, but for you. For your own growth, your own peace, your own pride. Because when you truly work hard in silence, you're not just chasing results, you're building inner confidence. And that kind of confidence, it's quiet. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need attention. It just is. I used to think confidence came from the outside, from what people said about me, from how much attention I got, from the image I projected. So I try to look the part, sound the part, act like I had it all figured out. Even when I didn't, I was performing. And that performance was exhausting because deep down, I knew that if the applause stopped, I'd feel lost. I was depending on outside validation to tell me who I was. But here's the truth. If your confidence is built on other people's opinions, it's not confidence. It's a costume. And sooner or later, the costume falls off. Real confidence comes from doing the work when no one's watching, from keeping promises to yourself, from saying, I'm going to show up today, and actually doing it day after day, whether anyone sees it or not. That's where the magic is. That's how you build something solid inside yourself, not a facade, not a show. Something real, something unshakable. When you work in silence, you give yourself permission to grow without pressure. You get to try, fail, learn, and improve without the weight of judgment. You get to discover what you're really made of without performing for an audience. That kind of growth, it's sacred, it's private. And it builds something stronger than ego. It builds character. It builds self-respect. And let me tell you, self-respect is way more valuable than self-image. The world will always try to sell you this idea that confidence comes from being seen, from being celebrated. But that's shallow confidence. That's surface level. Real confidence, it's deeper. It's knowing who you are even when no one's clapping. It's standing tall even when no one's watching. It's believing in your vision, your ability, your worth, long before the world catches up. You can't fake that. You can't post your way into that kind of strength. You earn it in the quiet hours. You build it when you're tired, but keep going. When you're doubting yourself, but don't quit. When you're tempted to seek attention, but choose to stay focused. That's when confidence starts to take root. That's when it stops being a performance and starts being a part of you. And listen, I get it. We all want to feel seen. We all want to know our work matters. But here's what I've learned, and the person you need recognition from the most is you. If you're proud of your effort, if you know you're showing up with integrity, if you're putting your heart into what you do, that's enough. That has to be enough. Because if you're waiting on the world to crown you, you'll be waiting forever. Crown yourself. Show up for yourself and know that what you're building is worth it, even if it's unseen right now. There's a peace that comes with this mindset. When you're not chasing validation, you can focus. You can breathe. You can create. You can get better. And as you do, you start to realize you don't need to convince anyone. Your confidence doesn't come from being noticed. It comes from knowing the truth about your effort, your grit, and your growth. That's the kind of confidence no one can take from you. So stop worrying about proving your worth. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. Just be it. Be the hard worker. Be the one who keeps showing up. And let the rest take care of itself. Because the more you grow in silence, the more unshakable you become. And when it's time, when your moment arrives, you'll walk into it with a confidence that was built, not bought. Trust your process and build yourself from within. We all want to grow. We all want to become something greater than we are right now. But what most people don't understand is that real progress, the kind that transforms you, doesn't happen out in the open. It doesn't happen when everyone's watching. It happens in private, in the quiet, when no one's around to clap or critique. That's where the real work gets done. That's where the change takes root. See, there's a stage in every journey where things are messy, where the vision isn't clear yet, where your skills aren't polished, and where every step feels uncertain. That part isn't glamorous. It's not Instagram worthy, it's uncomfortable. And that's why it's so tempting to skip it, or worse, to hide it behind a performance. But you can't skip that stage. It's necessary. It's where you learn what you're made of. It's where you build resilience. And that kind of growth, the deep kind, needs space, it needs silence. When you work in private away from the noise, you give yourself permission to fall down without fear. You give yourself room to experiment, to try things that might not work, to fail without judgment. That's how you improve. That's how you evolve. Because no one gets it right the first time. No one wakes up and becomes great overnight. Growth is ugly before it's beautiful. It's awkward before it's smooth. And that process, that struggle, it's sacred. Too often, people want to show the final product without showing the process. But the process is where everything happens. That's where the grit is formed. That's where the mindset is built. That's where the identity shifts from who you used to be to who you're becoming. And you don't owe anyone a front row seat to that. It's yours. It's personal. And it's okay to protect it. I remember the times when I was building and nobody cared. Nobody asked how it was going. Nobody cheered me on. And in those moments, I had to make a choice. Was I doing this for attention or was I doing it for progress? Because if I needed people to notice, I would have quit. But because I was focused on growing, I kept going. Even when it was lonely, even when it was quiet, even when it looked like nothing was happening, because deep down, something was happening. The foundation was being laid. The roots were spreading. You ever see a seed in the ground? Nothing happens at first. You water it. You take care of it. And for a while, it looks like a waste of time. Nothing changes. But underneath the surface, everything is changing. It's breaking open, finding direction, pushing down to find strength. And eventually, when it's ready, it breaks through the surface. Not before. Not on anyone else's timeline. Only when it's strong enough to stand. That's how we grow too. Quietly, slowly, beneath the surface. And it's in that space where no one's watching, no one's clapping, that you learn your most important lessons. You learn how to be patient, how to be humble, how to be self-motivated. You learn how to pick yourself up when no one's there to encourage you. You learn how to depend on discipline instead of momentum. That's the kind of growth that lasts. That's the kind of strength that carries you through anything. There's also a peace that comes with private progress. You're not performing. You're not comparing. You're not chasing someone else's pace. You're just doing your work. One step at a time, one day at a time. And every little win adds up. You look back one day and realize you're not the same person you used to be. You've evolved. You've sharpened. You've become someone stronger, not because the world told you so, but because you did the work in silence. So if you're in that place right now where it feels like no one sees your effort, where it seems like the progress is slow, don't get discouraged. That silence isn't empty. It's full of growth. It's where the transformation is happening. And when the time is right, when the roots are deep and the foundation is solid, your results will speak for themselves. Respect the silence. That's where the real work is done. There's a special kind of power in consistency. Not the kind that shows up loud once in a while, but the kind that shows up quietly every single day. That steady, relentless effort without needing praise, without needing an audience. That's what separates the dreamers from the doers. Because while everyone's waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect setup, the perfect motivation, the ones who win are just out there doing the work, quietly stacking brick after brick. People often think success comes from some massive leap, some big, dramatic moment that changes everything. But that's not how it really works. Success is small, quiet, and patient. It's built in the everyday effort. It's hidden in the early mornings, the late nights, the disciplined choices no one sees. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about not stopping, about showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I've seen this in my own life. Times when I didn't feel inspired, didn't feel ready, didn't feel strong, but I kept moving. Not because I had the perfect plan, but because I made a decision. I was going to be the kind of person who doesn't quit. And that decision carried me through the days when motivation was nowhere to be found. See, motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a commitment. And the people who commit to the work without needing a pat on the back, those are the ones who go the distance. The truth is, Consistency in silence builds trust with yourself. Every time you keep that promise to show up, to stay focused, to keep grinding, you're proving to yourself that you're dependable, that you're not just talking about your goals, you're actually living them. And over time, that builds a kind of quiet confidence. You stop second guessing yourself. You stop needing other people's reassurance because you know what you've put in. You know what you've sacrificed. You know what you've earned. Most people don't have a problem starting. They have a problem continuing. They get excited in the beginning when it's fresh and fun. But when it gets boring, when it feels like nothing's changing, that's when they fall off. And that's exactly why staying consistent, especially in silence, is such a powerful skill. It means you've stopped depending on external rewards. You're not chasing quick results. You're focused on becoming the kind of person who follows through. And once you become that person, the results have to follow. It's only a matter of time. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who've really built something lasting. 9 times out of 10, their stories aren't flashy. They didn't just wake up and arrive at success. They worked repeatedly, faithfully. They did the same basic things over and over again until excellence became their default. That kind of greatness can't be rushed, and it definitely can't be faked. It has to be earned. And it's earned in silence. Silence doesn't mean nothing's happening. Silence means something real is happening, something solid, something that doesn't need constant attention or approval to survive. You're not planting seeds for show. You're planting them because you believe in the harvest. And you're willing to water them day in and day out without stopping to see if anyone's watching. That's what it takes. That's what real discipline looks like. There will be days when it feels like you're going nowhere. Like all your effort is invisible. Like no one cares. But I promise you, those are the days that matter most. Because those are the days that build your character. Those are the days that test your commitment. Those are the days when you decide again and again that you're in this for the long haul. Not for the recognition, not for the applause, but because you refuse to give up on yourself. And that decision, that silent, private decision to keep going when it would be easier to quit, that's what changes everything. That's what turns average into excellent, potential into power. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's just consistent, steady, quiet, and unstoppable. So don't chase the hype. Don't worry about being seen. Focus on being consistent. When you keep showing up without needing a spotlight, you become undeniable. Stay committed even when no one's watching. The most powerful thing about working hard in silence is this: when the results finally show up, they speak louder than any words ever could. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't have to justify the late nights, the early mornings, the sacrifices, the grind. The results do that for you. They become your voice. And the beauty of it is, by the time people see what you've built, you're already so grounded in the process, you don't even need their validation anymore. This is what makes silent work so special. It's not just about being humble or reserved. It's about building something so real, so undeniable, that when it finally shows up, there's nothing left to say. That's what real power looks like. You walk into the room and the energy shifts. Not because you announced yourself, but because the work did. Because everything you've done in the dark has prepared you for that moment in the light. You see, people love to celebrate the breakthrough, but they never see the buildup. They see the championship, but they miss the endless hours of training. They see the success, but not the struggle. That's why you've got to make peace with the idea that most of your journey will be unseen,
Uncelebrated.
unnoticed. And that's okay, because the goal isn't to impress. The goal is to become. And when you focus on becoming, the results will take care of the rest. I had moments where I looked around and thought, no one's watching. No one sees how hard I'm trying. But those were the most important chapters of my story, Because that's when I was developing the grit, the patience, the toughness, the skill. That's when I was building something from the inside out. And now, when people see the end result, they think it just happened. But I know it didn't just happen, it was earned. That's why you don't need to argue with doubters. Don't waste your breath on trying to prove your worth. You don't need to post every step you take. You don't need to announce every move you make. Just move. Just work. Just grow, and when the time is right, the work will reveal itself. And it'll be so clear, so strong, so undeniable that even the loudest critics will have to respect it. Here's the thing. When you've done the work in silence, you don't have to fear the spotlight. You're not scared of being exposed because there's no faking involved. You're not just performing confidence. You've earned it. You've built a foundation that can carry the weight of success. So when the recognition comes, and it will come, you'll be ready for it because you didn't chase it. You attracted it through your dedication. There's also a quiet satisfaction that comes with this kind of journey. The kind where you can look in the mirror and know, I did that. Not because anyone told you to, not because it looked cool, but because you stayed the course. You respected the process, you trusted your grind, and now the results are showing up, not for attention, but as a reflection of your character. And when people finally see what you've accomplished, they'll ask, how did you do it? Where did this come from? And you'll smile, not because you need to explain, but because you know the answer is simple. It came from the work. The unseen, uncelebrated, unshakable work. That's where greatness is born. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in noise, but in silence. So keep building, keep growing, keep showing up, even when no one notices. Because when the results appear, they'll make more noise than you ever could. And by then, you won't need to say a word. Let the results speak for you.